And some.
Lighter. Thank you, Eric. Good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, August 25th, Warren County Local Development Corporation Board of Directors meetings. Welcome. Call this meeting to order. First order of business or second order of business is the review and approval of the minutes from July 16th. I need a motion and a second. Nancy, thank you. Dave, second. Thank you very much. Any questions, comments, changes? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Moving on to the financial updates. Yes.
Yeah, good morning. The July updates. So on the balance sheet, our current balance in checking and savings is 255,000. We are waiting on 25,000 from the county. And then the additional 1,800 is late fees in that accounts receivable. Our loans due are total 499,000. We do have an allowance of 123,000 there, so that takes it down a little bit. We did start action this month on one of our loans. Certificate of deposits, the total is 409. I don't know what I'm looking at, sorry. 910,000. We have one that renewed in June and one that renewed in August.
What rates?
So the August one was 355 and I renewed it for 1 year. And the June one is 358, also renewed for
3.55 and 3.58. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
So the interest rates continue to hold.
Yeah.
Reasonably stable. They kind of bounce up and down, but not in a big band. So the ongoing resolution to just continue as long as they're above the threshold is why she's rolling.
Okay.
So we have one that will renew in December of this year, and if we need to pull it out, we'll have that money there. Our accounts payable, that was just legal fees connected to the actions taken. Nothing has changed in the board designated funds or the net assets. So for the month, moving to the statement of activities or the P&L, our total interest between CDs and bank interest is about $1,000. We still collecting late fees. I'll have to see. I think maybe I suspend those at this point now that the actions have started.
Why would you do that?
I don't know.
I don't think you would.
But I will ask though. I will make sure that at some point, maybe.
I wouldn't expect you're going to get paid when you're under any kind of action, but you should continue to accrue them.
Okay. Well,
I agree.
Okay. The loan interest is 1,600. We do, so there's, nothing remarkable with bank service charges. So it's pretty much standard. You'll see under program expenses that $5,000. That's the first tranche of 15,000 that we budgeted for the entrepreneurial ecosystem. So that first check got cut. And then moving to the year to date, we've collected about 10,000 in bank and investment interest, a little over 13,000 in loan interest. So all our loans right now are paying. You have on your last page. Everyone but one is paying up to date. The second installment tranche of the Weekender Hotel also got paid out in the last month, that second 50,000. And we visited them and they're doing well. They're on track to open in the fall.
Yeah. I'll also share the pictures we took of the site visit.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. So then we have, at the bottom line, we are quite a bit ahead of what we have budgeted for this time of year. Mm-hmm. And you could see a lot of that is interest and and we haven't really spent on the programs. I think actually after we expend the money for the entrepreneurial ecosystem, that number will close up, the gap will close there. That is all I have. As I said, we had actions taken. We're still waiting so we visited the hotel. No response from Kirsch at all. I plan to visit the Cheese Place. We did visit the site of for the pre-development loan that we issued for 7 Hudson Avenue in Warrensburg. And anyway, the site has been cleared and cleaned up. And I'll reach out to him to get an
We
update.
also put him in contact with the leader of the chamber there, who works closely with the
Suzanne.
town, Suzanne. I felt like he needed somebody to act as a whisperer and navigator for the processes. They're now gonna have to apply for permits there. And I think as somebody from outside the community, that was part of what I think led to the disconnect on the site to begin with. I think he thought by working with Ash, he was working with the community. And I think he learned that Ash does not represent the entire community. So we also met with Kevin to make sure that he understood that we were involved, but we're trying to find somebody who was in the community to act as an immediate resource to him, and we would continue to try to help as well. I really believe that anything he did, although Kevin may disagree with me, but I don't think it's like some scheme. I think he just is trying to figure out how to do stuff here. And he's successfully developed in places like Troy and Albany, but the rules are very, very different. And the tempo and rhythm is different. So I think that's part of the process, is getting people like that to understand that it's not only slow and different, like if Kevin doesn't know what's happening, and any supervisor in any of our up county communities doesn't know what's happening, there's likely going to be some issue or delay. And in places like Troy and Albany, the senior people don't want to be involved at all. And so it's just a cultural shift. We've met with them personally, and I looked him in the eye, and there are many people who said, well, he deliberately did this. I think he followed bad advice. He followed bad advice from a contractor. He followed bad advice from a local person as part of who to hire as a contractor, and he didn't have any alternate voice to help him. So we want to try to close that gap. But I did want you as a board to know that we put a lot of time and energy to try to figure out whether or not this is still on a sound path. I think it is, but it's just going to take him longer than he originally planned.
I think that's it.
That's it from the financials.
That's it from the financial.
One thing I would say quickly, because I'm not going to do a update in general. I've got no indication from SUNY that they are going to offer startup 80K in the fall. Bob and them left and SUNY have ended their relationship around that. And it's not clear to me if there's anybody who's ready to pick that up. That to me highlights even more why we have to figure out how to close this gap on entrepreneurial support. It'll probably be part of the conversation that we have when we gather about a whole series of topics with them later. But I do believe that we're well positioned, because by having Bob on some kind of retainer here, I don't know whether we want to offer the program exactly the way that it was offered, but I do think we want to make sure that we're open for business and we can support anybody who's looking to try to either develop a business plan or launch a business. And the manner in which we do that, we're also trying to get feedback from this junior advisory board that we formed at the EDC level. We brought nearly 15 people, many from the outer county. Essentially, our board, our bylaws allow us to set up an advisory board, and there's no limit to the number of people. So what we saw were people from areas that were not represented on our board economically, people who were not represented geographically, and people demographically, maybe, who were different. So there's a number of new business ventures in downtown Glens Falls, but there's also Lindsay, the leader of the hotel in North Creek, has joined that board. Angela, who and her husband bought the theater in downtown Chester and are slowly trying to integrate that into the development of Chester is on that board. We have people from Warrensburg, a couple who are essentially running independent businesses from Warrensburg, but not well known, I think, to the community. So the point though is that they will also help us understand what it is that both new and existing small businesses are looking for in terms of support. We've already begun asking that. So we can cover that in a future meeting, some of the feedback that we're getting, but that will inform what Bob and all of us work on. If they tell us, for instance, that they'd much rather have workshops on an individual topic than say an 8 or 10 week long program, then we may look to kind of just change the manner in which we deliver the material. But Bob is working with us on all aspects of this right now. And I think he's eager to figure out how we do a better job of meeting their needs rather than just executing what's always been there.
Just a comment, Jim. I think it's, it's interesting what's going on in Ticonderoga and Skinner, just over the county line.
We brought at least one member on that board.
Did you? I just want to ask if.
Yeah, Amanda Ragland, who her and her husband redeveloped the Scroon Lake department store, and she was the leader of the chamber. They just did a big piece on them in Adirondack Living, yeah. And the women that have started new businesses there, and at one end, it's definitely, some powerful women, Julie Bonaccio and Andrea Crisafalli, who bought the former Word of Life campus and turned it into the Scroon Lake Lodge. But there are 4 or 5 women who have invested in new businesses there that have created a new energy. And they don't really have anybody to advocate for them economically. There is no EDC in Essex County. They have a part-time IDA. So we've certainly tried to help them informally, but all of their contracting work and all of their day-to-day life gravitates south. It doesn't gravitate north. So they shop at Walmart and they go to the hospital here, and their kids go to dance class at Queensbury. Half of Scroon Lake is in Warren County, right? But I think we're looking to try to figure out how we can be supportive of them, that in a way that doesn't cost us any more, because it's already aligned with what we're doing in the rest of the outer county. And if there are communities like Indian Lake, like Scroon, like Ty, that just sit just barely above our line, but clearly accrue to us, then we're going to figure out ways for them to be able to access whatever we do.
See, I think people have a different perspective about lines. It's like the line between Glens Falls and Queensbury, and the line between Warren County and Essex County. Because most things today, as they develop, are more regional in nature. So that's good that you put somebody on it like that.
We may bring others too. All of them were told if there's somebody who we should consider to add to this board, we have room to include them, and we'll start to get some thoughtful input on that. Okay. So I guess we can go back to
Next order of business would be the economic development grants.
Sorry, Mike, I think we need to vote on the
Financials.
Financials.
Oh, okay. Need a motion to approve the financials.
So
Bob and Dave, thank you very much. No questions, comments, I'm assuming. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
I put this topic on here because we normally try to keep you updated on what's going on that has a connection with the LDC, but we have one that has the potential for action in this meeting. That's why we asked you to not forego this monthly meeting. It's very timely. We're pursuing a number of different grants. We're actively involved in a childcare grant in the park. In fact, I was in Washington, D.C. along with Liza and Anna Bowers from the Town Council of North Creek, making a presentation about the work that we're doing to develop novel approaches to childcare that will work in the Adirondack region as a precursor to the greater investment that the state's going to make around expanding childcare. That was a 1-year grant, and we're looking to try to get a second year from the original funders, and we're in the process of understanding that. I'm not looking for any support from the LDC, but I did want you to know about it. And there may be a time when it is appropriate for the LDC to potentially participate in whatever recommendations come out of all of that work. Small Tales, which has got a facility in Warrensburg, but is offering childcare facilities on a satellite basis to Chester and now Bolton. is also being explored as a potential option for North Creek. And if some kind of facility-based, like if they need to open a small campus in North Creek, but the Small Tales entity would operate it under their management legal structure, that might be a place where they would seek support from organizations like ours. Second big one that I'm not asking for any help, but I want to make sure you know, is this Power Up grant that in fact, I have a call in 45 minutes with Empire State Development to talk about it. It's roughly $6 or $7 million to bring a second high capacity power feed to the Glens Falls side of the Hudson River. It benefits Finch most directly, but it benefits anybody that's on that side of the river. Whenever there's a power outage on that high capacity line, it takes every business down. And of course, Finch has had significant issues. Really important to understand how everything that happened at Finch resulted from that. When they had significant power outages in the fall, their pulp mill was down for 7 weeks as a result. They bought pulp on the open market for nearly 2 months. That essentially created the environment for their entire corporate structure to say, well, I guess we could do this all the time. So these things seem like abstract. They're not abstract. The lack of that graceful secondary power feed has had an economic impact here. And I wish it hadn't, but it had. Now, I still don't know how we're going to come up with the $6 million. It's a reimbursable grant, but we got to come up with the working capital to be able to do it. That's what my call is with Empire State Development. I can't, even if it was legal, I don't think it's reasonable that I can get Finch to pay all of that. And it's not. It has to be for regional benefit. So there has to be regional players. This has been something that the city has been reluctant to engage in. I brought the mayor down with us for the most recent meeting with Finch so she could be better read in on all of this. But the city stands to benefit from this, not only by virtue of Finch, but because their wastewater treatment plant is another one of those facilities that would have this. Now, they don't currently have that need. They're not using the same kind of high capacity, high voltage power that Finch is. But it's very likely that over the life of that site that they would. And so the idea that they would have diversity is a potential benefit. And Lehigh's site also, if it were to be redeveloped, would also benefit from this.
Mhm.
Not asking you for anything yet about this, but we will share some of that as it goes. We've made some progress on the idea of a freshwater center with particularly with the Lake George Association, and I can talk more about that at a subsequent meeting, but I'm confident that we will, in partnership with them and others, launch a study with the state. The state would help sponsor. We would probably look for some matching funds to execute that study. In order for the state to put money up, they generally like to do a study that tells them in the language they like to be told exactly what the best options are and how much they're likely to cost. So you wind up going through this process. We're not ready to ask for any support from you or others yet, but probably in the next maybe 2 or 3 meeting cycles we would. But that leads me to the last one, which is when Finch made their announcement that they were closing the pulp mill. Their objective was to redeploy all of their workforce as gracefully as possible. And I was able to validate in the most recent meeting that they continue to make an offer to every single person that was affected by that. That doesn't necessarily mean they're all going to take it. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's a like for a like. And so there may be some attrition there, but I think they're working in good faith to keep all those people because they have openings on the front side of their mill and they're growing that. We're also in discussions with Empire State Development about their current CFA grant, which also contributed to all of this. They had asked, they were ready to make a $12 million investment 3 years ago. They asked the state to contribute $4 million of that. We went through a year-long process of debating that. The Regional Economic Development Council came back and only gave them $1 million of the 4 that they asked for. And Finch said that won't work. That also contributed to the decision that their senior people in their corporates said this is not a site that we're going to be able to continue to keep open because we're not getting any help. Ironically, that word filtered back to the governor's office, and the governor's office went back to Empire State Development and said, no, we should give them all $4 million. So there was a decision made that they would make all of that $4 million available. However, it's based on the employment that used to exist when the pulp mill was open. And so now we have to have a conversation that says, well, if that number dropped down by 40, and we're expecting that we're going to grow on top of that, they're not likely to meet those goals, but it's all silly because what we're trying to do is keep this facility open. And we're arguing about whether or not they grew by 20 jobs when the goal is to hold 500. And I seem to have some headway with the governor's office about this. I think they're ready to support this. But what they've asked and what Finch has asked is for help to resolve the issues with the timber industry that they are not able to. Now that they've stopped, well, they haven't yet, but by year's end, we'll stop purchasing on a contract basis, soft timber from the local timber industry. They said, can you help address the alternate markets and potential ramifications for that part of the industry? And the state has asked that we do this as well. And in fact, Empire State Development said, listen, Jim, we're not talking about the CFA till we can sort out what's the right answer here, because all of us would like to do something. So I have in here a resolution for you. I've met with everyone that I can meet with quickly in this space, the Empire Forest Products Association, which is the lobbying and advocacy organization that exists for the people who harvest timber. I've met with a number of figures that worked in different parts of DEC and ag and markets that have a connection to the wood products arena. We've met with a number of professors from various institutions that were doing research around it. And we've met with various groups in the Adirondack Park that had at least some opinion or role in what they do to try to support this industry. Really important to understand that the timber industry is not just a component of what feeds Silvamo and Finch. It's one of the few things that a working person, and they're overwhelmingly men, can do and still live in the park. It's not at odds with the park. It's part of preserving the park. And if it attrits and dies, then we not only lose that capacity, but we've given up one of the things that can actually be done for economic value in the park. Finding alternate markets for this is something that we've looked at exploring before, so we can reactivate that network. There have been studies done on this, but they tend to be 10 years old, and they tend to be very focused on an individual problem or application. Like there were advocacy groups that wanted, for instance, to advocate to the state that we should advocate for things like pellets. And, that's at odds with the climate goals, for instance, of the state. So there was a study done specifically about that. But what we're really looking at is what would be the right industries and mechanisms that could pick up some of the slack in the demand. Now, it's already started to occur. But the impact to the wood basket of all the suppliers has already started to be felt. Silvamo has started to rationalize their contracts. So some of the people that were providing to Finch are now providing to Silvamo. The soft timber players that were south of where we are starting to find applications moving more to the southern part of the state and not coming up here. Players in New Hampshire and Vermont are also being affected, but that's not as big a direct concern for us. Here's the net. I believe that we have to execute a roughly $50,000 study, and the state is ready to award it. But I need $25,000 in matching funds to be able to do that. I think Finch would contribute, although they have not given me a definitive number as to what they would provide. I think I could probably talk to my own board at the EDC to be a player, but I can't carry the full 25. And so we've drafted a resolution for you to consider here about the LDC's role. I believe this is consistent with our charter. Our charter is to provide support to low and moderate income residents and businesses in Warren County. We do not know exactly how many are affected. My best estimate is somewhere between 50 and 100 individual entities that are either involved in trucking, harvesting, or in some way the idea of repeatable timber maintenance in Warren County. But that would be part of what we would identify in the study is where are these people? What is their impact? What is the work they do? What are the potential markets for the product they produce? We do have 3 or 4 viable options that we've already begun to explore informally. Things like bridge mats, which are used at construction sites, are the lowest end piece of timber there is. Things like pellets, which we talked about before, things like pallets that we talked about before, all of those could be turned up very, very quickly and at very low cost. Things like how we would composite it to be used as building materials is more complicated and would take longer. And things about how we would use the celluloid material in much more abstract R&D is even more out there. But all of them would be a part of what we would consider in the study. I am asking you as a board to consider whether first you believe this to be appropriate and aligned. And second, whether you believe that this is consistent with some of the board directed funds that you created to be able to support these kind of activities, not solely, but as a contributor. I would not ask you to be the primary funder of this, but I would ask you to consider whether or not you want to be a partner in this. I believe the total need that we're going to need is roughly $25,000, and I believe that Finch will carry a significant piece of that. So I got to figure out who the other partner.
The total need 50, that is the total product cost 50.
Yes, the study will be roughly, we'll put the RFP out for roughly $50,000. So the 25 is coming from the state. The state will provide us half, and they're ready by the way. They call me every 3 days saying, have you sent us the application yet? But I can't do that until I can identify where our matching funds are.
So I asked Jim to kind of bring that to this board because I thought it was really viable. Timing is the most important issue to get this done. So we can get whatever kind of $4 million or whatever it might be from the state to deal with some of these other issues. So I thought it'd be best to come from this board to say, we're willing to put up, I'm not sure what the resolution said, I gave it the name, but 25,000 or something like this.
Well, I'm not looking for you to put all 25, but I would like you to consider being a partner in it. And I also would tell you the timing is really, really important. If I could get the consortium of support organized in the next week or 10 days, we could issue an RFP. And by September, we could get this study in motion. We've already identified potential vendors who could satisfy it and done similar work. I think it would probably take somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 90 days to complete. And then by year's end, we would be in a position to advocate in the state's budget process for something that may help address the problem. If we delay much more than that, we're essentially losing a year. And that's my intent, is to figure out how we can be engaged in this year's budget process with the state.
If I could, two things, get back to the energy part of what you just presented. When I first met Jeff Flagg, he was not part of the working group of local government. He was a guy that was so much on fire, he had to hold on to him because he had an idea and he just couldn't understand why you didn't buy into it. And the idea at the time was to develop a microgrid in downtown Glens Falls. There was part of one that was still there. And, there were dark sky times that there was power that could be available to do that. And dark sky times are maybe when you need to make sure your sewage treatment plant's running, make sure your senior citizen high rises, which are also included in that, are powered. Make sure that your civic center, which is the county's disaster center, if we were to have a large mass casualty incident in this county, Glens Falls Civic Center is where it would be all at. It would have power. So I would hope that discussion continues because I think it's important. I had a lot of comfort in Finch Prime for many years, at least the years that I paid attention, I guess is the way to say it. Because you knew it was locally owned, the families were here, the roots were deep. That's bound to change. It changes in all businesses when it happens. I know that silently the elected officials in the city of Glens Falls shaking their boots right now. Because you hear stories about this is just step one to the steps it's going to take to the door, which would devastate the city of Glens Falls, would devastate the Abraham Wing School District. And if we devastate the city of Glens Falls, if you devastate the city of Glens Falls, we may be forced to come to the county and say to the county, we're abandoning our.
They really want to talk to you about it.
No, they don't. It's a flip phone, Beth.
It's a flip phone.
Yeah. You want one? You can have it back.
They really want you.
No.
It's just, you're doing such a good job.
Well,
Just
It's his wife. She's hungry.
So I hear from people who were long-term employees of Kmere who provided products to keep that mill going down there. Who said to me that, those people that own that have a tough decision to make. Most people in the paper making industry had newer mills, and we didn't have a new mill. And with the advent of Amazon and all the packages that were shipped, were able to convert over to produce corrugated cardboard. I believe the mill in Ticonderoga is an example of that. We don't have that luxury. The type of papers that Finch Prime right now is really a niche market, and they are number one in it. But I see it kind of slowly creeping away. And as I said
So do
before,
they.
yeah, right. So the devastation could not only impact the city of Glens Falls, it could impact the county. That the city could just have to say one day, we're abandoning our police department. We can't afford that $7 million expense anymore because we don't have the tax dollars coming from the largest producer of taxes in our city, Finch Prime. So I would even improve. I don't, you look at your financials and stuff, and we talk about a lot of things that we have to do. To me, the house is on fire, and you can either call the fire department, send one truck and see if you can't put it out, or you could say, look, we think it's a serious fire and we're going to send 3 trucks. That if we've got the money in our coffers of the LDC, that we spend the $25,000 and make our commitment to that. And see if that doesn't help others to leverage the rest of the money.
Do you, Jim? I have no problem with 25,000 from
No.
1.5 million. Which, if you had your druthers, would you like 10 from us, 5 or symbolic buy-in from other?
They need to contribute to it so that optically they're addressing this concern.
Yep.
They've been coy about what that is. My guess is that they're willing to put up 10. I don't know that. I think if you were to give me a resolution that said you would give me up to that figure, then I would essentially balance that against whatever they're providing. Speed is the key here. I think we need to take action. I take calls from people. I've been in the press a lot about this because we need to be responsive, as you say. And it's not just to Finch and their needs, it's to the ecosystem that surrounds them. This is going to have impact to others too. I've talked with Roselle. I've talked with people from Elizabeth's business. I think they were struggling to figure out how to continue to support it, but it's still going to have an impact to them in terms of their bottom line. To me, the biggest opportunity here is to keep the mill open as long as we possibly can. And I will also need your help when we advocate with the state that we need to stop this silliness about whether or not we're growing the jobs in order for us to make the financial contribution, because we just have to look on the other side of the goddamn river to see what happens when we lose sight of that. And I don't think every ear is deaf to us in the governor's office or other places, but the bureaucracy is strong. And I think we have to come and say unequivocally that we as an entity, the county, the LDC, the city, the entire region, believe strongly that we need to invest in this for the benefit of the entire place. And we're not going to argue about silly stuff. Now, I've also told them they should just recalibrate the entire thing, go back and redo the CFA package based on their current employment numbers so that we can stop having the argument. So we'll meet somewhere in the middle. But if you would pass some resolution so we can move forward with the study, that's the first step. And the second step will be trying to help us with letters and support around rational actions from the state.
I think we're in good shape. I think it's
I'll make
a motion up to $25,000
Yeah.
to support this and have it move as quickly as possible forward.
Yes.
Second by someone, Nancy. I'm sorry, Nancy. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other comments, questions?
Yeah, I got a question, Jim. Why did they lose power? Why was it 7 weeks to get the power?
No, the power wasn't down for 7 weeks, but the power outage was about a day and a half. They currently get the only high capacity power feed comes from Spire Falls. And it runs through northern Saratoga County all the way to you cross on an aerial line kind of between the bridge to South Glens Falls and the Lehigh Quarry, somewhere along there that it comes across. When a tree fell in northern Saratoga County, that caused a whole series of transformer events for grid. They brought the power back up the next day, but when they did it, they had several false, like they weren't able to bring it up and hold it. So in that process, Finch is a very manual place, and you got to run around and kind of like turn the equipment up and down in a sequence that's not automated. And in that process, they were in the process of turning it up when it went back down, and that caused the pulp mill to seize. And those parts took 7 weeks to secure for the things that were damaged. And so that's the whole chain of events. Now, this secondary power feed is really very simple. It's a power station that's near the Lehigh Quarry on the other side of the river. And 7 or 8 poles that will help carry that additional line. And that feed will come from the east where the power line is running down from back, although it's not that line, but it's from that conduit. And that's actually a very simple fix. It will probably, I mean, as I said, I got to figure out where's the working capital coming from for millions of dollars worth of reimbursable expense. But that is still an issue for them. The pulp mill was the most fragile to this kind of disruption. So the rest of the facility has more modern equipment and therefore would theoretically be less dramatically affected by these things, but it's hard to know. So we're going to continue to work it.
If I remember correctly, Jim, too, I don't think Finch Prime can, I'm not sure about after they get rid of the pulp side. But as I recall in discussions we had about this, that they depended on Brookfield to bring the extra energy to the plant that was needed that National Grid couldn't provide at all.
Yes, because they can't get the expansion in natural gas
Right.
across the river. And all these things it seems like a complicated soup, but ultimately, yes, that Brookfield hydro plant and their own cogen plant will continue to be fundamental pieces of this, and they will continue to take soft timber to feed that biomass. They were using the bark and the strip material from the timber that came in as the biomass feed, and now they'll just use raw amounts of soft timber for that. Probably somewhere in the neighborhood of no more than 15-20% of their original demand, but they will continue to buy for that.
So we have a motion, a second. All
You
Call the
have your
question.
time, Jim.
those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously passes.
And Jim, what about the hospital? Do they need that power too?
Not right now. But we are always in conversation with them about how but they would benefit from the microgrid more than they would that high capacity power grid. You need to utilize very, very heavy equipment. To be able to use 400 volt stuff.
Right.
All right, I think we're done.
Good.
Okay, listen,
Who's gonna do it?
Who's going to motion to
I'll
it?
make it.
I'll second.
Simple. Thank you.
In favor.
Jim, will you give me a minute or two? We'll be right back. We'll talk about one.
The other side, so the CI.
Oh, okay. I've heard of that. Where'd I write it?
And the other one is loose that.
Hey, how are you?
Proof of life.
Yeah.
Holy.
Have you been on
Oh,
String
that's
Lake
my
all this time?
freebie.
CI.
No, I didn't want to get one.
Oh.
I've been for a month.
Where?
I spent a week on the Ampersand Island up